Not every wound leaves a visible scar. Some quietly shape an entire personality. Many people spend years believing they are simply kind, patient, and always willing to help. They call it love. They call it loyalty. They call it being an empath. But beneath that kindness, there is often a story that began long before adulthood. A story that started in childhood, when they learned that being needed was safer than being noticed, that keeping everyone else happy was more important than expressing their own feelings, and that love had to be earned through sacrifice instead of received freely. This hidden lesson becomes so deeply rooted that it no longer feels like a choice. It becomes an identity. That is why so many empaths spend years carrying emotional burdens that were never theirs to carry. They apologize for things they did not do. They feel guilty for saying no. They constantly try to fix broken relationships while quietly ignoring the parts of themselves that have been asking for care all along. What makes this even more surprising is that many of these patterns are not signs of weakness or excessive sensitivity. Modern psychology shows that they are often survival responses developed during childhood. The child who learned to read every change in a parent's mood often grows into the adult who can sense the emotions of everyone in the room. The child who kept the peace between arguing family members often becomes the adult who feels responsible for solving every conflict. What once protected them slowly becomes the very thing that keeps them emotionally trapped. A quiet shift is now happening in the lives of countless empaths around the world. More people are beginning to realize that the role they accepted as children no longer fits the person they are becoming. At first, this change feels confusing. They start feeling exhausted by relationships that once seemed normal. They question why they always put themselves last. They notice how much energy disappears every time they try to rescue someone who refuses to change. For the first time, they begin asking a question that can completely transform their lives. What if the problem is not that I care too much? What if I simply learned to care for everyone except myself? That single question has the power to uncover years of hidden emotional conditioning. It can explain why setting boundaries feels terrifying, why guilt appears whenever they choose themselves, and why walking away from unhealthy relationships feels like breaking an unwritten family rule. Many people believe healing begins by learning new habits. The truth is often much deeper. Healing frequently begins by recognizing an old role that was never truly yours to carry. One of the least discussed facts about empathy is that many deeply caring people were never encouraged to develop healthy emotional boundaries while growing up. Instead, they became experts at managing other people's feelings before they even understood their own. They learned to stay quiet when they were hurting. They became mature far too early. They praised themselves for being strong while silently carrying fears, responsibilities, and expectations that belong to adults. This process is so gradual that most never realize it happened. Years later, they wonder why they attract emotionally unavailable partners, why they struggle to ask for help, or why they feel responsible whenever someone around them is unhappy. These patterns are rarely random. They often trace back to childhood roles that rewarded self-sacrifice, while quietly discouraging self-worth. Many experts describe these roles as survival adaptations, not personality traits. That distinction changes everything, because what was learned can also be unlearned. The journey of leaving that childhood role is rarely comfortable. In fact, it can feel like losing a part of yourself. The people who once praised your kindness may suddenly accuse you of changing. Family members may become uncomfortable when you stop accepting unfair treatment. Friends who depended on your endless availability may not understand your new boundaries. Even your own mind may resist the change by whispering that choosing yourself is selfish. That is why so many empaths turn back before experiencing real freedom. They mistake discomfort for failure when it is often evidence that genuine growth has already begun. One of the greatest misunderstandings about healing is the belief that it always feels peaceful. In reality, healing often feels unfamiliar before it feels freeing. The old identity fights to survive because it has existed for so many years. Yet every healthy boundary, every honest conversation, and every decision to protect your own peace slowly weakens the invisible chains created long ago. Throughout this video, you will discover why so many empaths unknowingly became emotional caretakers during childhood. and how those early experiences continue shaping adult relationships without them realizing it. You will learn why people-pleasing is often a survival response instead of a personality flaw. You will understand why guilt appears whenever an empath starts putting themselves first, even when they are doing nothing wrong. You will also discover why some people become uncomfortable the moment an empath begins creating healthy patterns, and why this reaction says far more about old relationship patterns than it does about the empath's character. Most importantly, you will see how leaving a childhood role does not mean losing compassion. It means finally allowing compassion to include yourself as well. There is one powerful truth near the end that many people never recognize until years later, and once you understand it, the way you see your past, your relationships, and even your own identity may never be the same again. This is not simply a conversation about empathy. It is about freedom. It is about understanding why so many caring people feel emotionally exhausted, despite having the biggest hearts. It is about discovering that strength is not measured by how much pain you can carry for others. True strength appears when you finally stop carrying pain that never belonged to you in the first place. The child who once believed love had to be earned deserves to become an adult who knows love does not require constant sacrifice. That transformation is possible, but it begins with awareness. Once you see the role that kept you small, it becomes much harder to keep living inside it. If these topics speak to you and you want to better understand the hidden psychology behind empathy, emotional healing, and personal growth, then you are in the right place. Welcome to the channel. Together we explore the deeper patterns that shape our lives and the powerful truths that help us break free from them. If you enjoy thoughtful discussions like this and want more videos that reveal the hidden side of human behavior and emotional healing, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next journey. Now, let's uncover the childhood role that kept so many empaths small and discover why leaving it behind may become the most important decision they ever make. Many empaths did not become deeply caring because they were simply born that way. Their empathy was shaped by the world they grew up in. From a very young age, they learned to pay close attention to the emotions of the people around them. They noticed changes in someone's voice before anyone else did. They sensed tension before an argument even started. They could tell when a parent was having a difficult day, without a single word being spoken. While other children were focused on playing, they were quietly studying the emotional atmosphere around them, because, for many of them, understanding other people's feelings became a way to feel safe. This was not a conscious decision. It was the mind adapting to an environment where being emotionally aware increased the chances of avoiding conflict or gaining acceptance. Over time, this constant awareness became automatic. It became part of who they believed they were. That is why many empaths reach adulthood thinking that putting everyone else first is simply their personality, when in reality it may have started as a survival skill that slowly became an identity. Children naturally adapt to whatever environment they are raised in because they have no other choice. They cannot simply leave a difficult home or decide to find healthier relationships. Instead, they adjust themselves to fit the situation. If a family values silence, the child learns to stay quiet. If love seems available only when they behave perfectly, they learn to become perfect. If conflict fills the home, they search for ways to stop it before it grows. These adjustments help them survive emotionally, but they also shape the way they see themselves for many years to come. Psychologists often explain that children are remarkably flexible, but this flexibility comes with a cost. When a child repeatedly changes who they are to meet the emotional needs of others, they slowly lose touch with their own needs. Instead of asking, "What do I feel?" they begin asking, "What does everyone else need from me?" That question follows them into adulthood without them even realizing it. One of the most common roles an empath develops is becoming the peacemaker. This child quickly learns that arguments create fear, stress, or uncertainty. Instead of expressing their own emotions, they try to calm everyone else. They become skilled at saying the right thing, staying neutral, and preventing conflict before it gets worse. At first, this may seem like maturity, but inside, the child often feels responsible for problems they never created. They carry the belief that if everyone else is happy, then everything will be okay. As adults, this pattern continues. They avoid difficult conversations, stay in unhealthy relationships longer than they should, and sacrifice their own happiness simply to keep peace around them. They fear conflict not because they are weak, but because their nervous system still connects conflict with emotional danger. Another role is known as the parentified child. This is the child who grows up far too quickly. Instead of receiving care, they become the caregiver. They comfort parents after stressful days. They help raise younger siblings. They take on responsibilities far beyond their age. Sometimes they even become the emotional support for the adults around them. While other children are learning about themselves, this child is learning how to carry everyone else's burdens. Many people praise these children for being responsible and mature, but very few notice what they quietly lose. They miss the freedom to simply be children. As adults, they often believe their value depends on how useful they are to others. Rest feels uncomfortable. Receiving help feels unfamiliar. They know how to give endlessly, but accepting care from someone else can feel almost impossible because they spent so many years believing they were the one who had to stay strong. Some empaths become the invisible child. This role develops when expressing emotions feels unsafe or pointless. Perhaps they grew up in a home where louder personalities received all the attention. Maybe their feelings were ignored or dismissed whenever they tried to speak. Eventually, they stop asking for attention altogether. They become quiet, independent, and easy to manage. Adults often describe these children as well-behaved because they never cause trouble. What few people realize is that many invisible children are not naturally quiet. They simply learned that disappearing emotionally was safer than risking rejection. Later in life, these individuals struggle to express their needs in friendships, workplaces, and romantic relationships. They often convince themselves that their feelings are less important than everyone else's. They stay silent even when they are deeply hurt because silence became their safest place many years ago. Then there is the emotional caretaker. This child becomes highly sensitive to everyone's emotional state. If someone is sad, they immediately try to comfort them. If someone is angry, they search for ways to calm them. If someone is disappointed, they feel responsible for fixing it. They develop an extraordinary ability to sense emotional pain, but they also begin carrying emotions that were never theirs to hold. As adults, they often enter relationships with people who expect endless emotional support. They become the listener, the encourager, the rescuer, and the problem solver. While these qualities seem admirable, they can slowly become exhausting because the emotional caretaker rarely asks who is caring for them. Their attention remains focused outward, while their own emotional needs quietly wait in the background. Another common role is the perfectionist. This child believes mistakes are dangerous because mistakes might lead to criticism, rejection, or disappointment. They work harder than everyone else. They try to be the best student, the most helpful sibling, or the most reliable friend. Success becomes more than an achievement. It becomes protection. Deep inside, they fear that simply being themselves will never be enough. As adults, this belief creates constant pressure. They struggle to relax because they always feel there is more to accomplish. They judge themselves harshly for small failures. They seek approval even after achieving impressive goals because their self-worth was built on performance instead of acceptance. These childhood roles rarely appear without reason. They often develop in homes filled with emotional neglect, constant conflict, unpredictable parenting, unrealistic expectations, or inconsistent affection. Children living in these environments become experts at adaptation because adaptation helps them survive. They quickly learn that expressing personal needs may lead to criticism, rejection, or emotional distance. Instead, they discover that being useful earns praise. Being responsible earns approval. Being quiet avoids trouble. Being needed creates a sense of belonging. Slowly, usefulness replaces authenticity. The child begins shaping every decision around one simple belief. If I make life easier for everyone else, maybe I will be loved. That belief becomes so deeply rooted that it follows them into every future relationship. The tragedy is that these strategies work well during childhood, which is exactly why they become so difficult to let go of later in life. The nervous system remembers what once created safety, even after the environment has changed. An empath may now live with supportive friends, a loving partner, or kind coworkers. Yet their body still reacts as though childhood danger is just around the corner. Saying no feels risky. Asking for help feels uncomfortable. Setting boundaries creates unexpected guilt. Their mind understands they are safe, but their nervous system continues responding to patterns learned many years ago. This is why people-pleasing should not simply be viewed as a personality trait or a lack of confidence. In many cases, it is a deeply learned survival response. The empath is not trying to impress everyone. They are unconsciously repeating the emotional strategies that once helped them feel accepted, protected, and loved. Years may have passed since childhood, but those invisible patterns often continue guiding their choices long after childhood has ended. The most important thing to remember is that the role you played as a child was never a sign of who you truly were. It was a way to survive. It helped you navigate situations that no child should have had to manage alone. It taught you to notice every emotion, solve every problem, and carry responsibilities that were never yours. At one point in your life, those behaviors protected you. They helped you find acceptance, avoid conflict, and create a sense of safety in an uncertain world. But survival is not the same as living. The habits that once kept you safe can eventually become the very chains that keep you emotionally small. Real healing begins the moment you stop measuring your value by how much you sacrifice for other people. It begins when you understand that saying no does not make you selfish. Resting does not make you lazy. Setting boundaries does not make you unkind. Choosing your own peace does not mean you care less about others. It simply means you have finally learned that your heart deserves the same compassion you have spent your entire life giving away. That realization changes everything. It changes the relationships you accept, the conversations you have, and the way you see yourself. Most importantly, it allows you to stop living according to a role that was written by childhood circumstances, and start living according to the person you were always meant to become. Not everyone will understand this transformation. Some people became comfortable with the version of you that never said no, always put others first, and carried burdens without complaint. When that version begins to disappear, some relationships may change. Some people may become distant. Others may question your decisions. That can be painful, but it is also a sign that your life is no longer being controlled by old patterns. Remember, the people who truly care about you will not only appreciate your kindness, they will also respect your boundaries. Healthy relationships do not require you to lose yourself in order to keep someone else happy. If today's message connected with your heart, take a moment to reflect on one question. What childhood role are you finally ready to leave behind? Sometimes, asking that single question is the first step toward a completely different future. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story may encourage someone else who is silently walking the same path. And if you found value in this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more deep insights into empathy, psychology, emotional healing, and personal growth. Give this video a like if it spoke to you, and share it with someone who has spent their life carrying everyone else's burdens while forgetting their own. Together, we can help more people understand that healing is possible, always. Remember this. The strongest empath isn't the one who carries everyone else's burdens. The strongest empath is the one who finally puts them down without losing the kindness that made them special. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.